Hey nature photographers, it is Lee Hoy, your generally friendly OM system and Photo Pro tripod ambassador. I'm currently in Curitiba, Brazil. I know the lighting here is a little bit yellow. I'm in an Airbnb apartment. If that bothers you more than great educational content, I don't care. Sorry. I traveled for almost 24 hours shooting this late on a Saturday before you watch it on Sunday morning. So to those who occasionally gripe about such things, I don't care. I do hope that today's content, I think you're going to find it very illuminating, because I'm going to give you 3 tips on how to move from a, quote, field guide wildlife photographer to more of a fine art wildlife photographer. In my journey, I've been trying to move more and more that way, and I think these tips are going to come in handy. So stay tuned. We'll be right back after this. Hello, my name is Lee Hoy, and welcome to my YouTube channel, Lee Hoy Photography. I'm an OM System Ambassador, Senior Workshop Instructor for Wildside Nature Tours. I'm a workshop instructor for Precision Camera and Video, and a contributing author for the Journal of Wildlife Photography. So, here's tip number 1, in terms of moving from a field guide to more of a fine art wildlife photographer. And this is more challenging for those of you, especially that started out as birders, bird watchers, and came into photography, because every field guide you've ever seen, every app always shows the entire bird, because they're trying to show you field marks to identify it. And as much as I enjoy a bird on a stick with pretty bokeh in Costa Rica, it can get a little predictable and frankly a little boring at times. So I've been trying to do different. And I'm going to show you a few images that I believe demonstrate this. So this first image, we're going to hop here into Lightroom. This first image is of a red-tailed tropic bird in the, red-billed tropic bird in the Galapagos Islands. And you'll notice I'm in tight. You see just the head and the wing position on this bird. The background colors are a beautiful contrast. You'll notice I'm not worried about the clipped forewing, but the focal plane is on the bird's head. And this is a beautiful bird if you see its in entirety, but often to show it its entirety, you have to be zoomed out quite a bit because the tail is so long. I love this image. You see some of the delicate features. The primaries are spread nicely, showing you some of the details in the wings. I find this a much more interesting shot than a lot of typical shots of this bird. So again, here's an example of not showing the entire bird. Let's hop in and take a look at another one. This is an image captured in the Galapagos Islands of a magnificent frigate bird feeding on the afterbirth of a sea lion. Now, I just showed this image in a video on shooting at SH1 using Pro Capture SH1. But again, I had some folks in a mentorship program meeting last night say you weren't worried about clipping the wings. Absolutely not. I intentionally clipped the wings. I wanted a nice tight shot. Here the head, the tail, the wings, the position of everything. I love this shot. Yes, it's a foraging shot. There's nice action. It's a flight shot. I'm down low. This is more of a fine art shot to me than just a typical field guide type shot. You wouldn't see this shot in a field guide. So I love this, the focal point, the beak being open. I feel like the visual balance is outstanding. No, I'm not bothered at all by the clipped wings or even the slightly clipped retris, the tail feather there on the right side of the image. Doesn't bother me at all. Love this image. Very happy with the way this turned out. So let's take a look at another image where I'm not worried about showing the whole animal, okay? And a couple of these you might see them again under another category. Here is a high key image, black and white, converted to black and white, of a harbor seal. Again, you don't have to see the whole body, just the head, but I feel like this is a fine art type image. I love the way this turned out. This particular seal had very dull colors, and when they're wet, they're even duller. But this image, yeah, I love the eyes, I love the nose, I love the position of the head, the reflections. But again, I'm not worried about showing the entire animal. We had an ocean that was very calm. This was a private workshop in Puget Sound. I told my client, we got to get low to the water. This harbor seal was moving towards us, and sure enough. And again, all these images you've seen uncropped. Okay, so there are a few examples. Here's another one in beautiful black and white. I'm not interested in showing the whole animal. I'm not even bothered by this slightly busy background, because what I wanted to show was what a jaguar looks like when it's hunting. I wanted you to have the feel of being the caiman or a capybara. And this is, even though this is a hunting shot, I feel like this is more of a fine art type shot. Again, you only see what you really need to see, the eyes, some of the face, and through post-processing, I'm able to help you focus on that even more. So those are a few examples of not being worried about showing the entire animal. Showing the entire animal is way overrated, way overrated. And I am moving more and more away from that, okay? Now, so that's tip number one, stop worrying about showing the entire animal. Tip number two, stop using front light only. Front light can be very pretty, nice, warm morning light, front lit subject. It can be quite pretty. Again, it can also get quite predictable, and it can be a little flat, whereas other lighting conditions can add so much more power to the image. Much more intriguing, much more mysterious, much more artistic. And this tip comes from, I had a client who was a chemist, so you know how chemists are going to be very literal in a lot of things. And she was a wonderful lady on a workshop with me in Brazil, and she kept wanting to shoot front lighting. And I told her, you know, that gets predictable, it gets a little boring. So here are some examples of images where I was not worried at all about front lighting. So let's jump back into Lightroom. I call this my Game of Thrones dragon pose on this blue-footed booby here. I love this kind of, you know, somewhat backlit slash side-lit bird. This lighting creates depth and dimension to this image. So having a nice dark background, you can see a little bit of a sea line to the right there, but this lighting adds, if this were front lit, would it be pretty? Yeah, it'd probably be pretty, but the background would be more illuminated. And I don't feel like it would have quite the same impact for me. This is more of a fine art shot because of the lighting type, okay? Let's take another look at a backlit subject. Here's a beautiful backlit dragonfly hit with a little fill flash. So the backlit situation is exactly what I wanted, but by hitting it with just a kiss of fill flash, I revealed a few more details on the abdomen, the thorax, the head of this beautiful dragonfly. So again, it's a combination here, backlight and fill flash. So let's take another look at another unique lighting situation, okay? Hop in here. Here's a beautiful backlit. This is a young jacana on the Amazon. I'm sorry, in the Pantanal of Brazil. And again, front light, these water droplets, the dew would not be nearly as distinct as they are with this backlit condition. This is why exposing to the right is important. I got as much detail in the bird as possible and in the foreground without blowing out the highlights. There might be a few blown highlights on the back of the head or whatever, but it's not enough to where it's an important situation. Blowing out the specular highlights in this image, we're not that worried about it. This is a beautiful backlit subject. I love it. You know, again, young jacanas aren't the most spectacularly plumaged of birds that you see, but this is a gorgeous shot right here. Okay, and this, here's another example of a high key shot. This is a common loon that's starting to molt into, it's in its pre-basic molt. In color, there's a little bit of greenish to the water. This is off Dungeness Spit in Washington. It's kind of boring and flat in color, but in black and white, this is a wall hanger to me. I love this shot in black and white. But again, overcast light. So not front lit, but overcast. I mean, we got to learn that overcast light is going to allow us to shoot much longer than just a straight front light kind of day, okay? So overcast light becomes just quite beautiful. In fact, here's a combination shot. This falls under tip number one, you don't need to show the entire animal. And tip number two, overcast light. I'm laying down. You'll like this image. This is a 2-shot pano using the 150 to 400. This is a northwestern garter snake, particularly beautiful individual. Found it lying out on a road. Somebody would have run over it had I not come across it. Moved it into the grass in a cemetery. Overcast day, so high ISO, low shutter speed because I'm laying on my elbow, so I could. And I love this shot. 2-image pano, not showing the entire animal. Almost all snake shots I see from a lot of friends of mine, they always want to show the entire animal. And it's just tougher to make a really visually compelling image sometimes when you're always focusing on the whole animal. I know some photographers who do it incredibly well. Some of them, one lives in El Paso, and I know some others who do it really well. But for me, I really like just showing the key parts of the animal, okay? So again, that's an overcast light, going to let us shoot much longer. So those are some good examples of, not front light situation. Now, tip number 3 is going to be very closely related. Over the last 3-4 years, I've really become interested in micro lighting conditions. That means light conditions specifically on my subject. It can also be on the background, but very much so on the subject. So micro light, I'm not worried about everything else that's going on. I'm worried about unique lighting conditions on the subject and the subject only, okay? So I love to teach about all these different types of lighting conditions, but more and more, I'm ratcheting that down. I love to look at phenomenal work from portrait photographers because I can see what they're doing in shaping, bending, crafting light, using diffusers, reflectors, soft boxes, all the different tools that they have at hand. And how can I look for that with natural lighting conditions? So back in the Lightroom, this is my favorite bird in the world, the swallowtail gull. This makes me think of the work of a portrait photographer. Beautiful preening shot. When I was in the Galapagos, I decided to focus on preening behavior a lot. This has this soft, ethereal, I feel like I have a photographer nearby with a reflector or a soft box because that light, while it illuminates my subject, it bends and wraps. There's shadows, there's some highlights. There's this beautiful, soft combination of lighting that brings out the beauty of this bird. And this is one of my favorite images of the year so far in terms of lighting. Beautiful. Notice I don't show the whole bird, right? It's not front lit. And I paid close attention to the micro lighting conditions, okay? Let's jump into another one, micro light. Look at this. I saw how the light was hitting the head of this red-footed booby. This is in the Galapagos Islands. But the wing was in shadow and a little bit of light hitting some of the secondaries and tertials over here on the left. But look at the micro lighting condition. So the wings form a V with this beautifully illuminated eye and bill, not showing the whole animal. I love this shot. This is more fine art than field guide photography, right? I mean, look at the subtle details on the head feathers. Look at the details there in the gape of the bill right back here. Look at the details around the eye. Look at the iris and the pupil. I mean, this shot to me, fine art type shot, okay? Here's another fine art type shot, black and white, and I looked at the patterns and the texture, okay? And micro lighting conditions, overcast, so very even. And so this image I crafted in black and white, looking at the micro lighting conditions right on the subjects. And then this is a great example. I'm going to show you the raw, the edited color, and then the final black and white image, okay? So this is the exposed to the right image. To be honest, not a very exciting image, but when I shot this, I had black and white in mind. I knew exactly how I was going to post-process this image. So this is exposed to the right in order to capture as much detail as possible. Oops, went the wrong way. So there's the edited, so first this went through DxO Pure Raw and then edited in Lightroom. So that's the color image. I love that image, beautiful image. However, that's the image. Look at that, the micro lighting condition, the light was coming right across the eyes at its strongest. So by toning down some of the light on the edges, see, there's our raw file. See the micro light on the eyes, how it's brighter. You can even see the vegetation right below the eye is brighter. But look at my post-processing. So this is why if you're not good at post-processing, and hint, at least 80% of photographers could use a lot of improvement on their post-processing. This is a magical image for me. It's not often you'd say you'd put a Yukari Cayman on the wall. I would hang this one on my wall, okay? So here's another micro lighting condition. Very boring kind of image in color, but the image micro lighting right on the subjects. Boom, just a little bit of unique light right on there. Harsh light, but the micro light conditions in color, blah, flat, boring, black and white, bam. Okay, so here, so you're not going to believe this. This image is taken with the OM3 using art filter number 10, version 2. That's the black and white. This is a JPEG, and I did do edits to it, so this is, you know, a JPEG that's been edited. And I love this image. I love the composition. This is more fine art. This is not field guide. This is fine art, Jabiru Nest in Brazil. I love this image. Thank you to OM System Ambassador Eric Rock for turning me on to this art filter a couple of years ago when I was in the Faroe Islands. Before I went to the Faroe Islands, he told me about it, and it's the only art filter I generally use. Spectacular, okay? Fine art type image. Here is, I'm going to start with the raw. We'll go to the edited color, and then we'll look at the black and white. Now, I want you to look at this image. This is a male jaguar who was sniffing around for a female that had just been around, and he's sniffing her pheromone. So I saw the micro lighting conditions, but exposing to the right shows all this detail, okay? But first, color, nice image, you know, good. But let's go to the black and white. Boom. Micro lighting conditions, okay? And again, by pulling the exposure down on the background and doing some very specific editing, I'm able to help reveal the textures, which are much more powerful than the color in this particular image. Mastering post-processing. Sign up for that mentorship program. So micro lighting conditions, here's an outstanding example. I saw a lot of caimans up close. This is shot holding the 150 to 400, literally with my hood touching the water. I rotate the lens foot up. I flip the screen out. Bam, bam, bam. Harsh light coming through some plants right on the head. Everything else was dark for the most part. I love this shot. I love the micro lighting conditions. Dappled light, which can be challenging. But by exposing to the right and knowing how to post-process, I'm able to take you right into the face of this caiman as if you were soon to be prey. This is, I love this shot. I love the detail in the eye. And if the light weren't on the eye, but on the bridge of the, you know, if on top of the snout here, would not be as powerful an image. Took a lot, and this particular lighting condition was my favorite, okay? This is another one where as soon as I saw it, I was thinking professional portrait photographer. You see how the light on the head is coming from the lower left. Now this cat, this jaguar, is sitting in a tree, shaded. How did we get that lighting? Hint, there's no portrait assistant with a reflector down to the left. Reflection off the water and a gap in the branches. This is how a photographer who's a portrait photographer crafts light on a human. And I love looking for it in nature. So that you know, soft reflected light coming from the left, it gives us raking light, which provides tremendous texture. And by mastering post-processing, I was able to hone in your focus right where I wanted it. Powerful image. I love this image. Absolutely spectacular. One of my favorites of the year. And I think, let's see here, if I showed you all the, I think so. That might be all my examples. Oh no, here's one more, a couple of them from the Galapagos, okay? I love this type of emerging light. Now, obviously I'm shooting Galapagos shearwater, so as they're flying, they're going into all different kinds of light. But I saw as they came around, I'm on Prince Philip steps. So I'm shooting these birds as they're circling, okay? And I saw as they were in regular light with blue water behind them, which was nice shots, but as they came along the cliff, they would come out of the shadow. So I set my highlight alerts for the bird in the sun, and then boom, and autofocus did a great job of picking them up enough to get me some incredible shots. I love the micro lighting on the subject and on a little bit of the background here. Here's another example. Absolutely love it. Is it challenging for autofocus? Of course, but what fun is photography that's easy, you know? And beautiful depth and dimension to these images. So, 3 tips on moving from a field guide to fine art wildlife photographer. You know what? And there's nothing wrong with having your interest only in field guide type photography. I'm not going to say you shouldn't do it. I take those images at times. However, I find that most of my images that I think about putting on my walls, more fine art style. Again, it's just the advancing and maturing of my own personal journey through wildlife photography. And, you know, as you move along yours, you may want to try some more fine art type wildlife photography. I hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope you've learned a lot. I'm in Curitiba with Easiana, having a great time. Had a, listen guys, this is what's so awesome about down here. Went for a steak dinner. I got the 5 tenderloins with gorgonzola cheese. You know, alcohol, I had a mule and it cost me $45. Yeah, cheap, fed both of us, unbelievable. Hey guys, I will see you next week. I will be doing a YouTube live soon. I'm gonna have a couple of giveaways in there, so be sure and hit the button to notify you of my upcoming things. I've never asked for subscriptions. I don't ask for likes. I don't like doing that. But I have had people tell me they're missing some things. You got to hit that notify me, okay? If you want to do that, great. If you don't, no problem. But I want to thank you for being a part of my online community. If you don't sign up for one of my mentorship programs, I hope you'll look at one of my workshops in the future. I'm Lee Hoy, your generally friendly OM system and Photo Pro ambassador. Go out, capture some visually compelling images. Bye-bye.